How's it going, and welcome to my continued guide of Chapter 5 of the 5th edition module Tomb of Annihilation. This video is going to cover level 5 of the Tomb. However, before I go into specific names and all that fun jazz, I must warn you that there will be spoilers. Players, do not look at this stuff because the DMs and we're going to have a grand time looking at all this amazing stuff for you. All right. Now that the players are gone, let's go ahead and dive right in. Level 5 is the Gears of Hate. And why is it called the Gears of Hate? Well, that's because there is gears and there's hate floating around. That hate is presumably tied in with the aboleth that has a domain around here. It's not the aboleth's lair, much like the beholder on the previous floor, but the aboleth still resides in the water around here. Your players could have actually arrived in the water before, actually on level 1, by diving into that cave in that first little area. They also could arrive here by going down the staircase, that spiral staircase that seems to go up the majority of the levels 5 through 2. So we're looking at this awesome stuff here. The map continues to be gorgeous, but most important of all, this map is customizable. So if you're playing online, you're going to be able to do what I'm about to show you here. You can go onto the map layer of whatever system you're running on, Foundry, Roll20, all the other fun stuff. You can come in here and you can change what the gears look like. So we can see here, yeah, there we go. Yeah, it takes a second to load. But you can see how the openings have moved into different places. That is very important because there is a whole mechanic on changing the gears over in Area 61, which we'll be getting to in a moment. Really awesome stuff. But I must warn you, as online, that's really simple. Just 2 clicks, bada bing, bada boom, we changed it. If you're playing in person, you are going to have to make some type of cutout, and you're going to have to make some type of something. If you're playing in person, you're going to have to get a little creative in order to make these gears actually operate. And even more so, especially if you're playing in person, you are going to have to sit there and memorize each little layout because unfortunately, the book only comes with basically what it should, where they're pointing to. There's no actual picture of where they can actually end up. So those of us that are playing online actually have a bit of a luxury there. Regardless, when your players drop down from the previous area guarded by the 4 four-armed gargoyles, they're going to arrive in Area 58. Before I go into Area 58 and all the other ones, as a friendly reminder, I'm just going to go ahead and touch on the stuff that appears before Area 58. We have some aboleth slime kind of around here. Stuff's pretty gross, and if you touch it, you take 1d10 psychic damage. Kind of creepy, crawly stuff. But also, very important is the fact that there is an aboleth around here. The aboleth, though, is a really odd being. It's not like the beholder where it simply just sits there and does nothing and waits. That aboleth is actually kind of floating around and it's waiting. It's chomping at the bits to get at your players. However, this aboleth is quite frankly insane. This aboleth has actually gone so insane. It's basically gotten a dual personality. Whenever your players come to interact with this aboleth, you're going to roll a dice, and it states that on evens it has one personality, and on one it has another. The first of its personalities is childlike and friendly and inquisitive and kind. The other personality, though, is dangerous, is evil, is its true alien aboleth self. So if your players for some reason end up in the waters or they're maneuvering around the cogs and they decide to jump right in, they can certainly be in for a terrible time. In addition to that, there's also a chance that when they operate the levers in Area 61, they can actually establish a telepathic link, which could prove to be disastrous. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into each individual little area. Area 58, the Cog of Rot. When your players drop in, which by the way is not that big of a drop, it's only a 15-foot drop, meaning that if they lower themselves down with rope, or if they actually take the time and have some friends lower them down, they're not going to take any damage at all. However, if they don't use any type of tool or implementation, they won't have an easy way of getting back up because I don't know about y'all, but I personally can't jump 15 feet up. So take that what you will. It actually specifically states here that to scale the smooth walls of the shaft, a character needs a climbing gear or magic, or you know, someone doing a circus act of standing on top of each other. The Cog of Rot natively, when they hop in, is filled with this pungent stench, but nothing really happens. There's nothing natively dangerous here, nothing scary going on. The real trick here is that they arrive here and they can see that there's two ways they can go. They can either head over to Area 58, or they can start heading down to Area 62. When they eventually make their way over to through Area 59 and make it to Area 61, they'll turn the cogs, and it specifically states that when this room is rotated by the controls in Area 61, sprinklers kick off and animate some shambling mounds here. So that kind of leads up to they come here and they're, oh, what's waiting for us? There's nothing. But the next time they arrive here, they are going to get jumped by three shambling mounds, which getting jumped by three shambling mounds is pretty freaking scary. They could theoretically engulf the party and be a ton of fun to fight. It does state though after 1 hour the shambling mounds revert to dead compost. So for some reason, if your players decide to rotate the cogs, and for whatever reason they decide to at that specific time take a short rest, then they just coincidentally kind of dodge this thing. That being said, as well, if they take a short rest and for some reason then turn the cogs, then a new group of shambling mounds could be animated. Area 59, the Cog of Acid. When your players arrive in here, they can see that there is an acid pool in the center, and basically it looks like there should be a trap here. However, currently the trap is not reset, it's not filled, meaning that they can make it through here absolutely no issue. However, if you are a fun and creative and maybe even a vindictive DM, you could say that if they spend too much time in the tomb, then perhaps the tomb dwarves finally get around to setting this trap up right and maybe creates some fun trap where the acid spits out of these dragons' mouths. Uh, there's not really much to be said about this place other than it's a pretty easy dodge, and makes this place feel like the tomb dwarves are actively working in other places. Area 60, the Cog of Blood. So this cog is basically a fight after fight after fight. There's essentially a whole bunch of wardrobes around here, and whenever they open a wardrobe, they can get into a fight with some of its denizens. Let me go ahead and show off the GM layer here. So they can get into a fight with the following: a crowd of will-o-wisp, a duo of mesoloths, a monodrone, a single one, a tribe of orcs, and a bone devil. Immediately, that sounds pretty dangerous. However, this isn't like a fight where they all pop out at once. They only come out once the wardrobes are opened. Meaning that unless your players go out of their way to open up all the wardrobes at the exact same time, they're not going to have to worry about all that much. They can handle these things one at a time, which admittedly, if at this point in the game they should be, 8 levels 9 or 10, every single one of these fights aren't going to be really that difficult. Specifically, the monodrone is a sad combat because the thing is got 5 HP and looks pathetic and can't really fight back because if anybody hits it, it's totally dead. The Bone Devil is probably the hardest of all these fights. Not probably, it just is. But really not that bad. Really, really fun interactions here. There's a lot of flavor text in here in regards of what they see in these wardrobes and all this art that essentially comes to life. So really cool stuff. Area 61, the control room. So it's here where we can see the control panel, which will basically get the players to activate the cogs. This would be really, really hard to describe, basically saying, there's a lever and a knob and a button. That would just be way too hard. So thankfully, we get an incredibly beautiful little art piece right here that you can show to your players, and they can visually tell you what they're doing. Do you turn the blue knob left or right? Do you turn the red knob left or right? Do you press the red button? Do you press the blue button? Do you move the lever up and down? And they can also see specifically what's really good about this is the art in the back. You can see that, you can see the ways that the cogs are functioning and all that the fun stuff. So you can see if they move it over, they can do this and they can activate it to the next area. However, this thing is not without its traps. So the control panel does the following. The blue dial, when turned left or right and snaps back to the center, it determines where the crystal is. Basically, we saw the crystal in area 3, but if it is basically flipped, it can start going left to right, and that'll determine where it'll activate. The blue button, when it is pressed, the cogs start to rotate to where the light is. The gold lever, when pulled, is going to start releasing a whole bunch of aboleth slime into the room. Pretty awesome stuff and incredibly dangerous because if they get basically hit by a bunch of this green slime, they're going to start psychically getting assaulted, and it's really not good because they need to be in this room in order to activate this unless they got, mage hand or flying or whatever. They need to be in this room, and if this room is just filling up with all the slime, they're just going to be in for a really, really tough time. If they push the red button, a portcullis slams down, basically cutting off this control room here. Meaning that if they press this button after the slime is getting released, then they're going to be trapped inside while slime is filling up to the brim. Really, really not good. And lastly, we have the red dial. When it's turned to the left, it automatically establishes a telepathic link between whoever does this and the aboleth. Whenever it is twisted to the right, however, it ends this. If they activate this and are automatically linked with the aboleth, it actually states that the aboleth says, "Oh, hey, Gora, what's up?" It says, "What now, Gora?" Gora is the name of Withers when Withers was a human because he was a Omuan at some point. So basically, Withers and this Aboleth go back all this time, and supposedly Withers talks to him. Establishing this contact is pretty scary because if he is in his childlike form, then you're gonna get this weird, kid saying, "Oh, what's going on? Who are you?" But if you activate him when he's going all aggro, he's gonna be like, "Oh, now I've got someone to play with," and that could prove absolutely disastrous. So here as well, we also get the configurations. Once again, like I said, it's kind of rough to see. Like, it specifically says the open doorway connects to da da da. So I would highly recommend that you go ahead and, if you're playing in person, uh, be ready with those. Definitely have those at the ready because it's going to be annoying trying to flip through that and trying to closely examine what it actually is supposed to look like. Area 62, the Stone Juggernaut. So this is one of the two ways your players could theoretically go right from the start as they make their way into this floor. And my oh my, is this a trap of traps? There is no reason for them to come here. There's no need for them to come here unless the skeleton key is placed here. But if they come down here, they're going to be in for a rude awakening. They're actually going to see a graffiti on the wall that says "Awaken Napaka," which, if your players had interacted with Napaka's crypt on the previous floor, they might know to maybe avoid this. But if they don't know who Napaka is, if they didn't interact with Napaka's crypt, then that's just going to be, just some flavor of, oh, I wonder who Napaka is. So we see here in 62B this sloped hall. Basically it is sloped up just a little, and they can see that if they look to the left, there is a curtain, and if they look all the way down the hall, they'll be able to see basically just a stone hallway. There is candles that are magically lit here, and there's also a secret hallway. Once again, unfortunately, with this module and with this art style, we can all see that hallway clear as day. But if we take a look at like the dynamic lighting and whatever else, they don't actually cover that. So if you actually want this secret crawlway to be hidden, you're going to have to cover it up yourself, or if you're playing in person, you're going to have to come up with some creative way to cover the wall. Down here at Area 62C, we have a four-armed gargoyle, which is now sadly only a three-armed gargoyle, and there's a little poem that says, three I need, then three more still, opens the door. This is actually also a callback to the Tomb of Horrors, as the Tomb of Horrors had a multiple armed gargoyle as well. And basically, the simple matter is all the players had to do is drop gems into the gargoyle's open hands, and when the gargoyle gets fed these three gems, the three gems disappear, and then the ruby, the Eye of Zoltek, appears. However, this is not a fun, reward. This is also a trap, as whenever this happens, all of a sudden a gas is going to erupt from this statue, and everybody must make a DC 15 con save or fall unconscious. But that's not the worst part about it. Yes, falling unconscious is terrible, and they are unconscious for an hour until they take damage. The real kicker here is if they do this, if they activate this gargoyle, or they go up to area 62B here and activate the hallway, that is when area 62D is going to erupt. That is when that false door at the end of the hall is going to activate. It's going to open up, and the stone juggernaut is going to start plowing through. In fact, I think we get a cool little art piece. Yep. So this would be, if we were looking at it from the side here, the stone juggernaut basically just comes careening down. And golly jeepers, is this terrifying. If they are down the hallway, right in front of the stone juggernaut's going to get a couple of attacks in. If they're at the bottom and a couple of them failed their saves and are unconscious, this thing's going to start running people over. And why is that bad? Well, this thing's got basically two attacks. One, it slams into people, a plus 10 to hit, and does a measly 3d10, 3d12 plus 6 damage. And if they fail their strength save, then they are knocked prone. But also important, this thing tries to run people over. Whenever it moves through a space of a prone creature, it will force a DC 17 dexterity saving throw, or they take 10d10 points of damage. And that is, by the way, that is on a success, they take half, but on a failure, they take all. So, golly, this is disgusting. This thing is pretty hard to kill. 15 AC, 157 HP, tight hallway. And the thing to consider is this can be the most trivial combat encounter of the entire campaign. If they took the time and actually found Napaka's crypt and got Napaka's scepter, all they need to do is basically have the scepter touch Napaka, the Stone Juggernaut. If the scepter, if Napaka is activated, they will have to make an attack roll with the scepter, which won't be too hard if they're a fighter or whatever. But if the scepter hits the Stone Juggernaut explodes. If for some reason they actually get to Napaka, the Stone Juggernaut, without activating it, they can just have the scepter touch it, no attack roll required, and the Juggernaut explodes. Really, really awesome stuff. What is the reward for overcoming the Stone Juggernaut in this crazy hallway with theoretical death and destruction in tow? Well, they can get the Eye of Zoltek as well. They don't need to feed that gargoyle at the bottom there to get the Eye of Zoltek. If they defeat Napaka or they just simply crawl right through, they can find the Eye of Zoltek right there. Eye of Zoltek says it's worth 5,000 GP, but can fetch up to 5 times as much in a city. So, according to my math there, 25,000 GP. If you tell your players that, they can already start looking at stuff and saying, oh, that's going to bankroll my fortress, or I'm going to get, the ship or whatever. It really, really cool. Area 63, the gas-filled room. As we can see here, there is a room which, right when your players drop into the Cogs of Hate, they won't be able to activate or go into. But once they get the cogs to start rotating, they will be able to look into this room. When they do, they're going to see basically just poison emanating out of this thing. And also, they'll be able to see a dead body. They will be able to see Lord Brixton, the commander of the Company of the Yellow Banner. He sadly met his fate here and is totally dead. But for your players that are willing to take a little risk and get some loot, or if they're poison immune because they're yuan or whatever, they can actually dive right in and get some of his swag. What's inside his swag bag? Well, something really important for a lot of puzzles in this tomb. He has a bag full of 6 gemstones worth 50 GP each. Definitely can be used for some of the other things like the gargoyle or to feed that annoying skull. But also really cool, he's got a sword which it's basically a long sword, but it gives you the ability to speak and understand Draconic. Cool stuff. Nice little flavor-filled sword. Area 64, the base of the waterfall. So this is the area where your players could accidentally, or maybe on purpose, fall down all the way from Area 1. When they arrive, they're going to basically see that there's only one way to go. If they attempt to climb back up, they have a DC 15 athletic check, which admittedly isn't that hard for some people, but still. The water is 30 feet deep here, and if they don't do anything, then the current's going to sweep them away to the rest of the water. Area 65, the underground lake, is where your players will end up if they try to do some shenanigans around the cogs or have fallen down. Your players will discover that if for any dumb reason they decide to drink the water here, they will be poisoned. And basically, for the remainder of the time that they have this water in the system, they will be poisoned, but they will automatically throw it up in 1d4 minutes. Gross. More so, this is where they can potentially get assailed by an aboleth. But what's also really cool and interesting is they'll actually be able to look up underneath the cogs and see that there is tomb dwarves actively doing maintenance underneath the cogs. And they're doing so on rappel cables and leather harnesses that dangle from above. Really, really cool stuff. Really seeing the inner workings of, there's no way that this place is just uptight and perfect all the time. This place does require maintenance because I'm sure it gets used quite a bit. It's here in this section where we get information on the aboleth, and it tells you what I've said before. It's crazy. Sometimes it acts like a child, and sometimes it acts like a 10,000-year-old evil aboleth that's really pissed off. Area 66, the Door of Devouring. If your players arrive here from the water and they're swimming around and they're looking for any way to go, this is the only place to go. They'll just be swimming around, and through process of elimination, they will be able to find that there is a tiny little dock here, where there's 2 little boats and a diving cage, as well as a door. When they look at this door, it's going to have a face on it, and when they step near the face is going to say, "I'm so hungry I could eat you alive, but I'll settle for something else, something living, something light." If your players decide to, just give into the moment and just immediately try and throw some food at it, then they're going to be in for a world of hurt because the door will basically spit it out, lash out with its tongue, grab whoever, dared throw some nasty food at it, and teleport them to the oubliette. Really, really scary stuff. If, however, they actually listen to this and take a bit of time to look around their surroundings, they'll be able to see that all around the water are basically luminescent crabs. These crabs can totally be acquired if they simply take this diving bell down and go. What's cool about the diving cage is if they do decide to go down with it, while inside, they essentially have the water breathing spell cast upon them, so they're not in any real danger. They are totally able to grab a couple of crabs and make their way back up. Of course, all that time they could theoretically, be in the fight of their lives with a terrible aboleth. And lastly, for this area, we have the rowboats. The rowboats are cutely named Predator and Prey. If you are in the ship Predator, you have advantage on attack rolls while inside the water. If you are in the ship Prey, you have advantage on all saving throws while in the water. So, if for some reason your players really want to reenact Jaws, but instead of going up against a stupid shark, they're going up against an intelligent, enslaving monster, they can certainly do so. And these boats actually make for a really awesome thing. If they figure out the mechanics of these boats, they might say, "Hey, we're going to put the people that attack a lot in the attack boat, and we're going to put the people that make their save really need to make their saves in the saving boat." So you could have a really, really epic encounter with an aboleth on the water in these boats in the middle of a lake while there is giant cogs above. Really, really cool imagery here. Area 67, the Hall of the Golden Mastodon. If your players decide to make their way here, once again, it's not a required area unless you have the one of the skeleton keys meander over here. They'll be able to look and see that there is an epic golden skull essentially, and what they need to do is they actually need to take the star lever from the lever in Area 61 and bring it over here to activate this device. If they activate the device, they are going to be in for a world of pain because they will be in for a basically multi-round combat with additional add-ons every single round. When they pull this on, they have a round to do whatever, and then on round two, four spine devils show up, then three bearded devils show up, then two barbed devils show up, then one horned devil shows up, and last and certainly not least, an Aranice shows up. Your players should be able to handle the spine devils, absolutely no issue at this level. They should be relatively okay against the bearded devils at this level. When they go up against the Barb Devils, they're definitely going to be dragging because those have a bit higher HP pool. And then, of course, the Horn Devil shows up, and that's got a huge HP pool. And then last, the Aranus shows up, and more than likely they're going to be in for a world of pain because there'll be a ton of things, and presumably they've already used a bit of their resources dealing with the previous waves. And this is all nonstop, by the way. These things are coming in and trying to totally kill the party. It actually does state, though, here, we get a whole paragraph on it. If the characters try to bargain with the devils, only the Araness is willing to engage with them, but she's only willing to basically accept people's souls as a payment. The other ones are too happy-go-lucky to try and murder the players, which admittedly is okay because your players should probably be able to deal with all the other previous devils beforehand. And when they get to the Aranis, it is probably when they're gonna be low on the resources. So maybe saying, hey, we're gonna try and save the world. I'll offer up my eternal soul, and you let us go, kind of thing. Maybe that's a price worth paying. Once the devils are dealt with one way or another, they are able to finally get their promised reward. Chugakare, an ancient Chultan warrior, will appear and offer them the Skull Chalice of Chugakare, which is a totally awesome item. It is 2,500 GP, but could fetch up to 4 times that if sold at an auction in a major city. However, this is also the thing that Princess Muaxanare wants, and she believes that if she has this, then she'll be able to make all of Omu bow to her. Also important is the fact that this Golden Mastodon has 50 gemstones, 100 GP each, basically bound in this thing. And if the players are willing to take some time, they can go ahead and pry all these off. This is huge if they are totally looking to bankroll, their future lives. But also important if someone's got a yapping skull in their side and wants to get rid of it. This can definitely help payroll that thing to go away. Area 68, the Hall of Decay. The Hall of Decay is just yet another FU, middle fingers up to the players, as when they make their way down here, they'll be able to see that there's a whole bunch of tarnished clothing and weapons and a whole bunch of stuff just littered around the place. And if they make the sad, sad, pitiful mistake to walk through here, their non magical gear and clothing will be shredded as well. If they do not take the proper precautions, they are going to lose nearly everything. In the middle of the hallway, there is an iron bull skull which is biting down on an ivory ring. If the players were to send someone down there to pull the ivory ring out of its mouth, then that disintegration of all the armors and clothing effect will stop. This is definitely one of those things where if you casually say to your players, "Oh yeah, you all walk down there and all your gear is destroyed," haha, that is definitely gonna suck. So I would definitely say if your players are saying that they are moving together, then whoever's the point person, whoever's up in front, I would definitely say, hey, like you all of a sudden notice that your sword's getting rusty in your hand. You all of a sudden notice that your armor starts to feel all brittle and stuff. I would strongly recommend not punishing the whole party. However, if you do give these warnings and say, oh, the person in front, their weapons and all armor are totally getting destroyed, and they continue on, then just say, all right, it all comes crashing down. What do you do? And if for some reason they all decide to continue going forward, even after the first person has had all their gear destroyed, then go ahead and destroy all their gear. If your group is absolutely decked out in magical weapons and armors, this probably isn't going to be that big of a loss. But if they are still scrounging around, if they still are using some non magical weapons and more importantly, some non magical armors, and like, the fighter that's really loving his plate armor, and that paladin who's got that sweet, sweet half plate, if those things disappear, they are probably going to be crying because their AC dropping from, 16, 17, 18, 19, and all that fun stuff, all the way back down to 10. That's really, really going to hurt them. So, how are they going to actually know to pull the ivory ring? Well, the only thing it says is if they cast detect magic anywhere, then they're going to definitely know that the ring is magical. But that being said, hopefully you definitely say, the only thing of visible note in this hallway is that there's an iron bull with a ring in its mouth. Hopefully that should be enough tip to point out whoever is going to be the sacrifice essentially to go up and activate this ring or deactivate this ring. Area 69, the Mechanus Chain. In order to power the cogs, Acererak has essentially created a mini portal to this place and the plane of Mechanus. There is some really crazy stuff here. There's a whole heaping ton of lore here, and also a whole bunch of information on the drones that operate this machine. This map sadly doesn't provide a great showcase of the elevation here, but it states that the west balcony is 15 feet higher than the east balcony. If your players want to make it to the other side, they're either going to have to fly, run across the walls, or somehow pole vault. Or the scariest thing of all is to basically jump onto the moving chains. There's basically a showcase here of what the chains are doing. There is chains that are constantly going down, and there's chains that are constantly rising up. The chains rise and fall at a rate of 50 feet per round. And basically, what it states here is if your players sadly get caught up on the chains and either move too high up or too far down, their bodies are going to get obliterated. No saves, no nothing. Their bodies are just going to be destroyed. This is admittedly a really, really scary and tough room to run. There's a lot of moving parts, no pun intended here. There is a lot of things going on here. Lots of moving pieces, potentially a lot of flying around, whole bunch of shenanigans. You are seriously going to have to read, reread, and triple read this section to really get a handle of what's going on. And I would strongly recommend as well not only having this top-down picture, but potentially having a side view picture as well to really demonstrate the verticality of this room for your players and yourself. And last for this floor, we have Area 70, the Armillery Sphere. The Armillery Sphere is a strange device that lets players sit in a chair and lets them basically try and angle the stars and the planets around to try and get some type of result. When one player is sitting in this and they start activating this, a Nikoloth will spawn and start attacking anybody who's not in the sphere. And this isn't just any random Nikoloth. While it's not a named Nikoloth, it basically goes into a whole heaping detail about how this thing has a great axe, which on a natural 20 will decapitate someone. They basically spend a whole little paragraph explaining to you that this thing has a Vorpal great axe. I don't know what to say about giving any enemy ever in a D&D campaign a Vorpal weapon because I think it just kind of sucks to outright kill someone in combat. I can understand save or dies out of combat if, it could have been prevented, but there really isn't like there's no forewarning about this Night Colossus showing up, and there's certainly nothing you can do about a natural 20. You can't, use a reaction. You can't really change it. The only people that can actually change a natural 20 would be like someone who has the lucky feat. So I really don't know what I mean I do know what I think about giving a Nikoloth a Vorpal weapon. I think it sucks. That being said, if you change it to they outright die, they're outright decapitated. Maybe you just say instead of it doing double damage, maybe it says on the natural 20 it does I don't know 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times more damage. Because 10d12, that 10d12, that sounds survivable. That sounds like you can somewhat recover from that. Getting your head cut off, can't really recover from that. So we get this huge list here, and it states that whenever this conjunction is used and they get this one effect, whether it be good or bad, the machine breaks down, presumably not to be fixed again for the campaign. Which, like, it sucks seeing like, oh, there's this really, really like, there's a ton of different effects here. We got this nice little table and some really cool effects, but what it's basically saying is, in a whole campaign you run this, you'll only ever get to use it once. And that being said, I'm a DMing this for my third time, and it's more than likely your players may not even get to the sphere because they might be so scared of Area 69 beforehand. Very, very likely that your players don't even end up going here unless they really, really need to 100% everything. So it does suck that it only happens once. I would definitely recommend maybe this place resets after some time, or maybe make it so that each person can only get one event and no duplicates. Something along those lines to basically get some use out of this rollable table here, because I certainly want to get some use out of this rollable table. That's gonna wrap it up for a level 5 here. Pretty short one, and but it is really sweet. I really like this level. Lots of fun stuff going on. The fact that there's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of different encounters here. All the meanwhile, they could potentially be getting harassed and possibly enslaved by a aboleth is certainly awesome. I love this area. It is the lead up right to the finish. And my oh my, next video is going to be the grand finale, and there's going to be a lot to talk about there. But this is definitely a bittersweet floor for me because I have definitely seen players, this is like the second to last map transition ever, or the last map transition ever for most groups as they make their way here to floor 6. There is some things that do need to change about this level. There is the Vorpal Great Axe, really not fun. There is the potential for your whole party to lose their non-magical gear. All the other previous places were usually relegated to one person losing all of their non-magical gear. Here, it's that theoretically your whole party, which is certainly not a great time. But hey, losing your gear builds character. It helps build your player character. I don't have any real recommendations on where your skull key could be in this, except I would definitely recommend it not being in the water somewhere. It definitely should be in a room that is easily accessible, and you should leave the water to those that are really, really want to explore, and for the saps and losers that fell down the waterfall on floor 1. That is going to wrap it up for this video. We are totally gonna dive right into level 6 here in a brief moment for me, but potentially the future for you all. And my oh my, is it gonna be fantastic. Go ahead and tell me your stories. There is a lot of sad stories to be told here. There's a lot of epic and glorious stories to be told here. One of my most favorite stories from this floor is my team totally dealing with the Will-O-Wisp and the Mesaloth and the Orcs. They summon the Mono Drone and feel so sad that they don't want to beat it up. So they go ahead and open up the next one, and it's a Bone Devil. And that gosh darn monk gets that stunning strike on that thing 2 times in a row, and that Bone Devil didn't get a single attack in. Really not fair. I hate. That's going to wrap it up for me. I can't wait to dive into more of this stuff, and also I can't wait to see what you guys have to say all about it. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.